It's the Jim and Terry Show coming to you from the Hobbit Hole, an empty seat in the corner, while my friend Jim is safely social distancing for his surgery coming up at the end of this week. Stay safe, my friend. Don't let the germs get you down. Enjoy your newfound vision of life. Lyrics that speak to politics, economics, and life coming at you. And you can't lead once they've all been turned, and you can't light what's already burned, and you can't teach compassion and hope once the hating's all been learned. It's the lack of definition in the twilight hours that make it so difficult to find our way past all the claims and assertions of things that cannot be proven. Now chuck your branch onto the fire and watch it spark and come alive. Embers drawn up into the night sky, twinkling, fading, and in silence fall. And you can't. Well, for this podcast, I labeled this part 2 of the discussion because these lyrics apply to things political, economic, social, cultural, international, national, regional, local. And what's the line that I'm going to use for this one? Well, let's take the second one. You can't light what's already burned, and talk about burning out people, burning out people's political expectations, burning out people's economic aspirations and hope, dashing people's forward thinking and idealism on the shoals of economic downturns and beliefs about the nature of life and politics wherever you live. And I'm speaking from the Hobbit Hole in Canada. So let's speak about a conversation I had with one of my sons about the gloom and doom that has befallen, is it Gen Z, the latest 40-something, 30-something and 40 who are giving up hopes of home ownership, giving up hopes of being able to live, pay mortgages, and gloom and doom that we're being overrun by immigrants, especially the school system. I don't know whether you know the stat, but nearly 800,000 students come from foreign countries into Canadian institutions of higher learning. And I'm not sure of the reasons why so many, but that's a big, big chunk. And I'd like to know, one, I believe in furthering and enhancing people. So education is great. It liberates, but can it destabilize? And I'm thinking of the pro-Hamas rallies in Montreal and Toronto and other Canadian cities, Vancouver. And I'm wondering if it's the university students who have come from Middle Eastern countries, from Arab countries, from Muslim countries, who are taking advantage of the freedom of democracies to express their support for terrorism. It's no longer, I think, safe to say that it's pro-Palestinian. I think it's just terror versus state. And should it be a two-state solution? Well, that's for politicians to decide. I thought there was a two-state solution when Hamas was given control in 2008, I think it was. And the choice was made to, well, whether that was out of fear. Was it coerced from the people, or are the majority of Palestinians supporting terror? That's a tough one. Maybe that's not our place to decide or discuss, but when you see all the tunnels being blasted, and there was a video of all the explosions, all the detonations of tunnels, and the caption was that this is what freedom looks like, something like that. It was anti-Israel messaging, that this is killing innocents, these bombings and wanton destruction of Gaza. And I'm thinking, wait a second, you've got how many hundreds of kilometers of concrete tunnels with electricity, with air, with ventilation, with air purification, with resources, stockpiling of weapons, and you used international money, EU money, United Nations money, to build all that while denying or failing to build infrastructure for your citizenry to thrive, meaning that Hamas and their leadership has decided to deliberately use the people, willingly or unwillingly. And we can discuss the willingness of mothers to sacrifice their children if you're a Muslim in Gaza. That's another thorny issue, but taking the money and building stuff for your war. You're not using it to build schools. And if you do build schools, are you teaching hate in those schools? Are your schools just propagating hatred? Well, we'll get to that. The lyrics that I'm focusing on from that song are, "You can't light what's already burned." And I'm thinking goodwill has been burned with the Hamas October 7th attack. There is no goodwill towards Palestinians at this point, and I'm not sure that there will be an ability to resurrect a two-state solution when your neighbor bulldozes down your fence and kills your dog, your people, your pets, kicks down your door. Not sure that you want to have that neighbor as your neighbor. What would you do? I'm not sure. So it's bad. It's bad. Human life is human life. Wasted life is wasted opportunity. Who knows what contribution people who are victims of violence, in this case bombings, would have contributed to the wellness. Or are you just, is it the case of Russia going into Ukraine? It's just fodder. People are fodder. People are casualties of political decisions by elites. And whether you're the elite of Hamas living the life of Riley in Qatar, or whether you are Putin and the oligarchs living the life of Riley somewhere on your yacht somewhere, it's ordering people to be rounded up and used as cannon fodder, and that is the thing that gets me most. You can't light what's already burned. If you killed off people, where's your hope? People are your hope. People are your hope, not of teaching hatred, not of spreading hatred. But that's what we'll get to when we talk about funding UNRWA schools, UNRWA, UNRWA. Under their auspices, what was being taught in the UN-sponsored schools, how participating, whether turning blind eye or actively, or how are you, to what extent, complicit in what's going on if you do not report that there are missiles being stored underneath your hospital, that your hospital is being used to hold hostages. What? How does all this make sense, and how can you still defend that? Well, it gets complicated, so I'm not sure. I'm glad I'm not a diplomat trying to sort this one out. All I know is if you stop your fighting, both sides have to stop. And one of the conditions is release the hostages. What are you doing with hostages at this point? You're holding them because that's your card that you're going to play? Hamas, what are you thinking? You are deliberately, intentionally using your population as fodder. And for that, you should be held accountable in an international court. I think Israel being held? Sure, if South Africa is going to make charges at the United Nations, the ICC, International Criminal Court, against Israel, why not Hamas? Round up the leadership of Hamas, put them on trial too. All's fair in love and war, all's fair in terrorism and defense. I don't know, it gets complicated. You can't light what's already burned. That's the premise of the second one. If you've already burned through goodwill, there's no way you can rekindle it. If you've already demonstrated that you are violent in your nature by the way you protest, and I will contrast the flags on October 7th and the horn honking and rah, rah, go Hamas with the pro-Israel silent vigils, I'm wondering if you can tell something by the fruit. By their fruit you will know them. Violence. Who rips down posters of hostages? Violence. Who shouts with megaphones, intifada, intifada? What? Yeah, it's complicated. You can't light what's already burned if you've burned through your goodwill. If you've come to a Western liberal democracy to get your education, don't, dare I say it, don't insult the culture that's hosting you through grace by conducting yourself with incivility, with what seems to be a slap in the face disregard for civil discourse. Instead, it's a lot of megaphoning, it's a lot of occupying, it's a lot of unfurling of flags that really do not represent anything wholesome or good. So, yeah, I'm not sure about any of this stuff. What I'm sure of is that we need to address these things. You can't light what's already burned, and I'm using goodwill as what is being burned, and it's really hard to find goodwill once something has been used up, once you've been attacked. Missiles are still falling on Israel from Gaza. How is that possible? I do not know, but it's relentless. Once goodwill has been burned, the two-state solution doesn't seem possible. Once goodwill has been burned, as in Russia continues to hold conscription and send poorly trained, poorly outfitted soldiers, their youth, into battle. I heard the average age of Ukrainian fighters is 43. Average age of Russians is 20-something. When you're defending your culture, your livelihood, age doesn't seem to matter. I think that's one of the lessons. So can you burn through goodwill? Yes, you can. When you invade a country and say, oh, it's just a temporary occupation. No, it's, you burn through goodwill. When you keep saying, oh, we just want a little bit of this, a little bit more, and you don't stop, that's burning through goodwill. Will the UN settle any of this stuff? Or is that a moot point at this juncture in political life? You can't light the good once the goodwill has been burned. Words from the Jim and Terry Show, using lyrics of a song to exact a political insight, perhaps. Bye-bye for now.